Okay. So my name is Cindy Bassnett. I'm with CASA for Kids. I don't know how many of you are familiar with what work we do. When I first became an advocate, it was 2007, and I remember coming and doing some Christmas parties here in your gymnasium, and it was a joint effort between Child and Family Services. I don't know if Diana Lamers was the person who was kind of your liaison to get connected with that, but it was wonderful. We had a Santa Claus, and we had gifts for children, and it was just a really nice celebration. So thank you, first of all, for being the hands and feet of our Lord Jesus Christ here in the community. It's so critical that we have people that are meeting the needs, because that need is growing. As you all are well aware, the community has grown so much in the last 5 years. I think everyone around COVID time, Montana became kind of a focal point for the nation, like somewhere where people could come. And I think that we've grown tremendously. And not all of the needs have been met as well as they have grown. So there is still a need. So CASA for Kids is court-appointed special advocates. And what we do is we advocate for children that are abused and neglected and have found themselves caught up in the foster care system through no fault of their own, and then the court system. Our courts, we've got 5 district court judges now, and they all hear different dependent neglect cases. That's what they're called, DN cases, or dependent neglect. They all care so much about these kids, and they want to do good work. They want to make sound decisions. And the way that the program originally started in Seattle, Washington, was with a Judge Sukup. He said, I don't have enough information. I don't feel confident in the decisions that I'm making. And so he asked a neighbor of his, actually, that was a friend of his wife, if she would be willing to, after some training with him about what kinds of things he was looking for, if she would be willing to go and meet with some of the children and talk to them and see what was happening in their lives, and then report back to him what things were really like for the kids in the situation. So in our court system, we've got attorneys, we've got a social worker who's there represented by the county attorney's office, and then each person in the family has an attorney. Mom has an attorney, dad has an attorney, and they speak for the wishes of their client. And then the child and the children, if a sibling group exists, the children also have an attorney, and that attorney is to meet the wishes of their client. So CASA is different because we advocate for the best interest of the child. So while we do tell the court, this is what Joey or Susie wants, this is their wishes, this is what we see their needs as, and this is what we think is in their best interest. So what we advocate about is not just in the courtroom, it's also in the community. So you'll see us in the schools. Sarah, you probably have hopefully you've met some CASAs or seen CASA working in the school. We also are in the therapist's offices, the doctor's offices, the dental offices, the opticians. We're trying to make sure and advocate for these kids getting all of their needs met. So it's their physical health care needs, their psychological health care needs, mental health, behavioral health, education, and everything else you could imagine. So CASA is kind of the hub of a huge network of people that are all, I will say, every single person that's working in this system, the court system for these dependent neglect cases, every single person has a role, and we've worked really hard at CASA to develop really strong relationships with the social workers, child and family services, therapists, attorneys, the judges, and the families. And then there's all of the providers. There's people that are put in place to supervise visitation, all of that sort of thing. Therapists, chemical dependency counselors, and assessors, domestic violence assessors. So there's a whole wide variety of people, and CASA is charged with going to each of those people, every single person that is involved in the child's life in some fashion, including parents, foster parents, and everybody I've already talked about. We meet with them, not as a staff, but we're made up of community volunteers. So what our office does is we recruit, train, and support advocates that are volunteers. They don't get paid to do this work. And they go out and they spend 6 to 10 hours a month on average, meeting with the child, meeting with their social worker, meeting with their attorney, meeting with their doctor, whoever is involved with the child, meeting with their teachers, seeing what their needs are, and then making an assessment. So different judges run their courtrooms differently. At least every 6 months, well, first of all, when a child is removed, that comes because there's been a call made to centralized intake. It's been prioritized with a priority that's either a call for services, which then we don't get involved with. It could be a priority 4, 3, 2, or 1. Each level of priority is from the social worker can handle this, or we need intervention for sure. So priority 1 would be at the emergency room where they're seeing an injury, where the story doesn't match up with the injuries that they see before them. So priority 1 gets the highest priority, and that requires an answer, a response from the social worker who's doing an investigation then to happen within 24 hours. Priority 2 is 72 hours, and it just goes down the line. When CASA gets involved is at something called a pre-hearing conference. So we, as staff members, go to those pre-hearing conferences, meet everybody in the family that's available at that hearing, and they talk and meet all the different parties. Then we have an emergency protective services hearing. That's where the judge will make a determination. Is intervention required? Is this a child, a youth in need of care? And do I need to adjudicate? So once that happens, we get assigned to the case as an office. And we have a reserve of volunteers from the community that are ready to take a case. Hopefully. Right now, we are, all of our advocates who can take a case have a case. So we've got, I think there's 4 children that don't have an advocate right now. And up until about 2 or 3 months ago, we were getting an advocate assigned before that pre-hearing conference. So we're starting to feel a little bit of that tension where we don't have enough advocates, but we are training advocates. We train advocates, brand new advocates, every spring and every fall. We do training, and it's about 40 hours of training. And then we have regular monthly training, and then we also offer support for those advocates. So once that child is adjudicated, the judge has to hear the case again at a minimum within 6 months. So the child's life at that point starts to revolve around these 6-month increments. So if you think about that, like you now are, I just want you to think about this. Imagine that a helicopter lands in your front yard and people come to your door. They come in and talk to everybody in your family, and then they determine that you need to go with them. You get in the helicopter, you're assured that you're safe, everything's going to be fine, you're going to see your family again soon, that this is necessary because they're not safe. You're not safe. This is the plight of the child coming into the foster care system. So suppose that you go somewhere safe, and now what you know is that for the next 6 months, at least, you're not going to be with your family members. You're going to be in the home of a stranger. possibly family member. That's the best. If you can have a child go with a family member that they know, that they've already been to their home, they're comfortable there, that's what we want. And there's national legislation that just recently went into effect called Family First, and that's where they have said it's most important that this child goes to family first. So they'll start with either a non-offending parent, someone who is not involved in the abuse or neglect, or they will go to a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, a cousin, and then they start working their way out. Who else in this family could possibly take care of this child or children? Family is generally the people that will stick in there through the most stuff, because our kids go through stuff when they've been in an abusive or neglectful home. They've gone through stuff already. But then even though they're getting removed from that space, that's not a comfort space for them. They had become accustomed to whatever was going on, the system, the dynamics in their family, as we all get accustomed to those things that happen in our family. So when we remove them from that, they start usually acting out because they don't trust people enough to speak out. They don't trust people enough to share their hurts and their wounds, and so sometimes they're acting out, or they might be withdrawing. It's really challenging to form connections with all these new people that are in their lives. They've now got visitations set up with their counselors and their parents. They've got siblings. If they're not able to be in the same home with their siblings, then they have some sibling time together, possibly, hopefully. So what CASA does, excuse me. So what CASA does is try to connect all of those resources to the child. Whatever it is that we determine, we assess that they need, we try to do that. So I want to just tell you one story. There's 2 kids that are in foster care. They've been in foster care for a year and a half. In that, so that's a year and a half is 3 of those 6-month segments of time. And in that time, they've had 3 different social workers. They've gone to 2 different schools. And if you can imagine transitioning not only your home and your belongings that you're able to bring to that home to a new family, a new situation, and then have to change schools. You're worrying about your best friend that's on the playground without you. Do they even have someone to sit with at lunch anymore? These are some of the concerns that our kids have. They're worried about other siblings if they're not there taking care of them anymore, because these kids sometimes can get parentified. That's where they are the ones who become kind of the adult in the house, responsible for meeting the needs. Could be cleaning, chores, cooking, getting younger siblings up for school. Anyway, so this little family of 2 kids, 1.5 years, 3 social workers, 2 schools, 11 different placements in 18 months. 11 different placements, but 1 CASA. And that's what we want to be, that one consistent person that walks through this journey along beside them, with them, kind of sharing with them, this is what's happening with the court. This is what the judge is going to be asking people. And what do you think about this situation? And what do you need right now? How can I help you? So I'll tell you another story, just because it's a brand new one. There's a girl who is 11 years old. She's been in the system for 2 years. She lost her mom. So immediately when a child is removed, the department makes a plan. Here are the things that we think you need as far as treatments or service plan. It's called a court-ordered treatment plan that the judge overlooks and says, yes, I agree that all of these things need to happen as well. It could be chemical dependency, could be domestic violence counseling, could be other types of mental health, could be getting on medications, determined by the assessors. But the court says you need to be assessed. I agree with these things. So the parents then have to start working on that treatment plan. So they're checking boxes too. They have to have a home. It has to be a home-like setting that's calm enough to have service providers come into the home and work with the parents to build that place back up to a place that's safe and whole enough for those children to come back, and then the family be reunified and grow together stronger. So we're working really hard to just look out for the needs of the children while they're in foster care, and then to try and we monitor when they're back in the home until the court dismisses the case. So back to this girl who's 11. She's been in care for 2 years. Right away, and within probably a month and a half, the court orders that court-ordered treatment plan with all of those things outlined. And within a couple of months, Mom passed away due to her addiction. Dad was in prison. She had older brothers, but they weren't able to care for her. They weren't old and stable enough to care for her needs. So she went through 11 different foster homes or foster placements. And I just was reviewing a court order or a court report. Every 6 months when that goes before the judge, we are tasked with writing a court report. So the advocate brings all of their information. This is everything I've gathered over the last 6 months, Judge. And here's what the needs are of the child: placement needs, permanency needs. Permanency meaning, is it best for adoption to take place? A guardianship? Is there other family members that can take in this kiddo? And then also things like services that the child is needing. So every 6 months when we go to court, at least a week before that hearing, we submit this court report that is written by the CASA, the volunteer from the community, but with our strong support. So if anyone's thinking about becoming a CASA, don't be alarmed about a report. We have such great supporters at our office. So we give the court, so I was reviewing the court report. Sorry, I'll get back on track. I was reviewing the court report, and part of that court report is my visits with the child. And the advocate says, I went on my July visit to meet child for the first time. She was in her first placement. And then I scrolled down a little bit to the next paragraph. I went to visit the child my second time. She was in her second placement. And that went on down through. And so some of those placements only lasted for a month, less than a month, a couple of months. And it's just heartbreaking to think that a child would be removed from their family and their home and everything that they know and are secure with, even if it's not healthy, right? That's normal for these kids. And then we put them into this home, and then this home, and then this home. So if you flip back to that story where you're the one who got picked up and told, you'll talk to your family members, but you're not going to live there now because it's not safe. But we'll find a safe place for you to be in the meantime. And this happened with this girl multiple times. So just recently, she was moved because there was no placement in the Flathead Valley for her. And she moved to Missoula, to a group home that's there. And I believe that it was divine appointment for that, because our CASA had moved to Missoula about 6 or 7 months ago. So when she moved there, that meant that they were closer. So the advocate could then go more than once a month to see where she was at and talk with her. So this girl wanted to go to church. And the advocate is not a believer necessarily. She did not sign up for that. We don't ask our advocates to meet all of the needs, just to determine what the needs are and help us to find out how to meet them with community resources first, or then our resources. So anyway, we happen to know a youth ministry leader in Missoula who we called up then and said, hey, we've got an advocate, we've got this kiddo, they're in your neighborhood. Would you be able to meet with them and maybe assign someone from the congregation to meet with them and welcome them in? She really wants to go to church. You're the only church person we know in Missoula. Would you be willing to do that? Absolutely, she said. She was so excited to meet her. They did meet. She's been now attending that church, and she was recently baptized there. So it's just really encouraging to see where God is calling us to act and then get to see the fruit of that. So this young girl is not in a I talked about permanency a little bit. She's not in a family home at this point in time. She's in this group home. And so while what we want for her is adoption, there's still those older siblings. There's 2 older brothers that are trying to get their stuff worked out. That could be a possibility. Could be a guardianship. Dad may be released soon. So there's all these different options. And the department is tasked, not CASA, but the Department of Child and Family Services is tasked with creating a plan for permanency for each of these kids. And they want to do that, like they're thinking about where are we going to put this child ultimately that's safe and appropriate. As soon as they remove the child, they start thinking, where can we put them? Where can we put them? And they try to find the most stable, safe placement that they can find right away. And as I said before, first family, and then they'll go through other resources. And there is a number of foster homes that are in the valley. I always get asked, do you think that there are a lot of families that do it for the money? I will tell you that there's no money in it, because the stipend that they get will care for some of the needs of the child, but they're tasked with taking children to all of their appointments, trying to manage these big behaviors, getting them to school that might be out of their neighborhood's area. So children have a right to continue going to their school that they were in. And we work really hard for that, but that is one of the biggest challenges. We've got one child that she is placed with a family member, which is the most important thing, and they live in Columbia Falls, but she went to Flathead High School, and so they come to Kalispell, and if you can imagine doing that trip 5 days a week, 2 times a day, right? 5 days a week, 2 times each day to drop off and pick up. It's challenging. She was doing some music lessons in Whitefish, but that had to go because it's just too many trips all over the place. So foster families do not make money caring for the needs of these children. We've got some great resources for foster families. ChildBridge is a great resource for foster families, and CASA wants to be a resource for families that are caring for these kids as well. So we're just now getting ready to we've put out wish lists for advocates to discuss with their foster families or the care providers, the caregivers. It's really challenging for these foster families at Christmas time. They might get a brand new placement in their home. They might have their tree up. They've got all their kids' presents wrapped. Everyone's anticipating this big day that we're going to celebrate. And then they get a phone call with children that need a place to come. And we want to be there to help support the placements in providing Christmas for these kids. So we have a gift drive that we do, and we work these lists out between the CASA and the foster placement so that the gifts are wrapped by the placement. They're as coming from the placement so that they fit in the family. The wrapping paper is the same. They know that they're their presents under this tree, right? So what we're doing is the wish list is something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read. So we just want to keep it pretty simple and not have an overwhelming, like, here's Christmas, here's all these presents to try and make up for the sad situation you're in. So we try really hard to just keep it simple, but we want to support those families. So let's see. I forgot to hit start on my timer, so you just let me know when I need to wrap up. So I will tell you that last year we served 169 children. They received the dedicated advocacy of a CASA volunteer. These children were supported by over 105 court reports with over 450 thoughtful recommendations to our judges. This is a testament to CASA advocates' diligence and their compassion. So this community's generosity is fueling this changing work, this life-changing work that we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is change the cycles of abuse. And we want to do that with cycles of advocacy. We want to be there. We've got now third-generation CASA kids in the system. Their mom was in the system. Their grandma was in the system. So it's a generational cycle that happens, and we want to break that cycle with the kids by showing them that there's a different life that's available for them. They have options and choices in life that might lead them to a different outcome. And so we just work with those kids as fast as we can, building rapport, building a relationship, consistently showing up for them at least once a month. They have an appointment with their CASA kiddo, checking with all of the people, all the professionals that are involved, and then advocating for that child's needs as they see it. So our revenue that we get for 2024, 6% came from state funds. 6% was federal funds through sources like TANF, Temporary Aid for Needy Children, or Families, Temporary Aid for Needy Families. 10% came from the local community, which is great. 42% came from foundation grants. So that's a huge portion of our money, and 2 of those foundation grants just this year are sunsetting, and they're sizable. So I'm looking for other ways to stay afloat. 36% came from our 2 events. We have the Great Fish Community Challenge. I don't know if you heard anything about that. Whitefish Community Foundation is absolutely amazing. They do so much hard work so that we can keep doing the work that we're doing. And we do contribute. We show up and, wave signs and pom-poms in the air and do everything that we can to join into this huge community challenge where we're asking all of you to help the community by getting involved. I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are there. You guys are doing that work. The Lutheran Bible Camp, Margie Fiedler, is that correct? She always invites our kids, our CASA kids, to come to the camp. And she lets me know how many scholarships she's got at the beginning of summer. And she reminds me throughout the summer, we still have 2 scholarships or whatever. And I've never actually heard her say, we don't have any room for this child. They can't come to camp. She's been so open-armed with our kids. She used to be on our board as well. So we have the Great Fish Community Challenge, and then we have a gala in May. So those 2 things make up just over a third of our budget. So we're now starting a campaign. We're celebrating this year 25 years of advocacy. So it was Judge Kitty Curtis who brought CASA to Flathead County back in 1999. She started working really hard. Her and Bonnie Olson, Penny Chisholm. There was a small crew of people that got together and they said, we need this in our community. We'd like to have it, and how can we make it happen? They were doing bake sales. They were raffling quilts, selling tickets, that kind of thing. So what we're getting ready to do now is celebrate these 25 years of advocacy, but we also want to prepare for the next 25 years. Because with the influx of people, we've got different challenges in our community for our families and for our children, but some is the same old story, right? Addiction, alcoholism, marijuana seemed like it was, it was definitely an issue, but now there's like, what are they called, the little shops that are dispensaries. And you can drive through and you're like, what is that smell? It could be a skunk, it could be someone hit a skunk, or it could be a dispensary. They are everywhere, and it's legal. And so it's really challenging for the court to tell a family, I'm sorry, you cannot use marijuana. They say, but it's legal. And my doctor says that I can have it, and that's beneficial for me. And it may be, but it also may be that there's addiction and that they're not using it as prescribed, or that it's a gateway into other stronger drugs. And so what we've seen, I would say, in the last 15 years, like meth, there was a big meth crisis, right? And then that didn't go away. But then we got fentanyl, and we got bath salts. And fentanyl and bath salts are weird. They're different because bath salts are just a combination of different things, different substances. And what they do is they make it in a laboratory, and it happens that they change the formula too fast for the feds to come up with a thing that says this is illegal. This is a controlled substance under this statute. And so bath salts are interesting. You don't know really what is going into them. It's usually a stimulant. It can be a hallucinogenic, and it's not good. But nobody knows, and it might get very, very high the very first time, or you might not feel anything the first 3 times, depending on what source you're getting it from. They are available at your gas station, folks. Yeah, over the counter. So children cannot buy it, but they're readily available and accessible in a gas station over the counter. So fentanyl. So fentanyl now is being laced in different drugs that people are doing. So people might think, I'm just going to smoke some pot. That's not going to hurt me. But what the dealers have done and the manufacturers of fentanyl have done is they've started to lace different drugs with a bit of the fentanyl, which is different. It's a different high. They know the source of that high is this person. They go for that, and it's a way for them to build up their clientele. Fentanyl, you don't know because it's not a pill that is crafted in a laboratory. It is a pill that is crafted, a laboratory, but not one that is controlled by agents that would keep everybody safe. It's coming across the borders. It's being compressed into these little blue pills. I don't know. There's probably other colored pills now as well. But you don't know the strength of the dose that you're taking is the biggest problem with fentanyl. We've had a child death in this community because parents were sleepy the next morning and they had their child come into their bed with them, and the child found one of these little blue pills and ate it. And parents had cartoons on, had no idea that there was anything wrong when they went back to sleep. So children definitely cannot, it's a little person with this huge dose. But even the people who are buying this drug don't know the dose that they're getting. So the first time could kill them. It's a big problem. And it shocks me to know how much is happening legally that I never was aware of as a community member. I knew that there were issues with drugs. I knew that I saw families around the community, and I saw these little children, and my heart hurt for them. And I could offer the mom, do you need some help getting your groceries back to your car? But it seemed like there was nothing that I could really do. I felt helpless. So I wanted to possibly be a foster parent. And then I was advised, before you become a foster parent, you should go through CASA training. And I was like, CASA training, what is that? So then months later, I had a girlfriend who'd come over for coffee, and she said, I really got to get going. I got to work on my CASA report. And I said, I've heard about CASA. What is that? And she told me a little bit about it, but she had to go. And then I heard it on the Dr. Phil show. And I was like, okay, that's 3 times I heard a message that I need to check out CASA and find out more about it. So I went to the local website, flatheadcasa.org, and I watched the videos of kids telling their story about foster care and what a difference CASA made in their life. And it resonated with me because I had 2 children in my home that were young. I didn't know what kind of things I was going to be bringing into the household that might be affecting my children. I wasn't ready to take that step, and my husband was not on the same page with me about bringing in all the world's issues into our home for working that out. So I became a CASA in 2007, and then in 2009, I joined the staff. I really felt like God was leading me to become employed. I was a stay-at-home mom at that point in time while I was advocating that first 2 years. But my youngest needed to go to kindergarten, and I needed to get some money coming in to pay for education and other things. So I called my director at that time, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't be an advocate. I'm on my last case now. And she said, what happened? Did something go wrong? And I said, no, but I need a job. And she said, we have a job. And so, I had a lot of prayer time on my knees in the garden, talking with the Lord about how much money I would have to make for going to work. I did not want to go get paid to pay someone else to care for my own children. And so we worked out a wage. If it's this amount, that's probably enough. And it was interesting because I'd been told a different wage. So if it was just this much more, then I think I could do this job. I think I could handle that. And he said, well, if it's this much, then that's a go. And I said, okay. My director called me, like, I don't remember if it was the next day or the day after that, but within a couple days, and said, I was wrong about the wage. It's actually this much. It still wasn't a lot of money. We are a nonprofit, but I did join the staff. And God has not told me it's time to move on yet, so I'm still here 15 years later, I guess. So, yeah. So let's see. Let me see if there's other things that I wanted to tell you. So last year, we served 57 different foster homes with gifts for 116 children. So that's definitely a way that you all could get involved if you felt so led. I would say the very most important thing that I covet from you is prayer for 112 children that are in our community right now, that are in the court system, that are in the foster care system. They need your prayers. I don't go to this church, so I don't know exactly what your beliefs are, but I feel like there has been a spirit coming into our community that is not good. And our families are struggling, and they're struggling with domestic violence, they're struggling with drug addiction, they're struggling with parenting, housing, food. So abuse and neglect is on the increase. And we need to call on God to show us where the need is and where we fit into that puzzle. So it's just a small piece. For me, it started out with just becoming a CASA. That wasn't small. That was pretty big, actually. But it could be a small piece. It could be getting a Christmas gift for a child. When we get those wish lists back from the foster placements, then we'll send them out to people who want to be a contributor for that. It could also be a monthly donation. It might be, you know what, $10 a month. I can do that. It might be a bigger gift. But the most important thing is the prayer for those 112 children, that they will find safety, that they will have loving people around them, and that they will start to walk out life stronger than they have seen before. Next prayer request would be for the 64 families that those 112 children come from. So pray for those families, that they would find the stamina, the motivation, the strength to walk out a new life that's different than what they've known previously. It's not easy. It's a challenge for them. It's like we kick away their best friend, the thing that has gotten them through life, all of the coping mechanisms that they have that are not healthy. We kick all of that away and then say, now go get a job. Now tell us your deepest, darkest secrets. Now, so we increase the stress load on the family while we take away their coping mechanisms so that they can find new healthy coping mechanisms. So 64 families. And then we've got 69 advocates. I would ask you to pray for those advocates, that God would give them wisdom, especially when they're making their recommendations to the court. Let them have eyes that are open to see the needs of the children and be able to communicate them clearly to the court and to the community so that we can meet the needs. And then lastly, I would ask for prayer for our staff. We have 6 staff members right now. We're going to be losing one in December 15th. So I have to replace her, and she's irreplaceable. So pray for our staffing situation, that we would find people that are going to be able to walk in strength and support the staff, or the volunteers that are working these hard, challenging cases. Because that is, for the advocate, vicarious trauma as they witness the child's journey through foster care. That's challenging. And it takes a big heart, and it takes a lot of love and a lot of patience. And just the system is very confusing. The foster care system, the court system. So having that one constant person that can walk through and just be with them, just talk with them, let them be a kid, that's so important. That's so critical. So if you, or if anyone you know, you think of like that person would make a great advocate, I think this is a person, let them know. Let them know that you just think they might make a really great advocate, and that you heard someone talking about the foster children in the community, the 112 children in the community that need someone to be their voice. So now I just want to open it up for questions that you might have.
So, what would you say the connection between these families and poverty is?
Huge, because when you struggle with addiction, you get poverty. When you have health and mental health challenges, you get poverty. Just because healthcare expenses are so high that a lot of these families cannot meet their own healthcare needs. So then if they can't function well in society, then they can't hold down a job, then there's poverty. So every domestic violence, you've got sometimes a partner, male or female, it can be either one, who's controlling the money. So sometimes the other partner that does not control the money and the children are at the mercy of when that partner is wanting to release some of the money. It's a way to maintain control over the family. So, but what I would also say, anytime there's domestic violence, there's, well, I wouldn't say every time there's domestic violence, but every time that there is addiction, there's going to be a financial strain on the rest of the family, and they won't be able to meet the needs. But I will also say that with domestic violence and with child abuse and neglect, those patterns, those cycles of abuse, whatever that looks like, it doesn't know how much money people make. I think we have an enemy, and I think every demographic, financial demographic, is susceptible. I think that we've had families that are very well off that have children come into the foster care system. Usually those families hire attorneys that are not the public defender's office, and they don't have cases as long in court. So we work very fast and furious on some of those cases to find out what the needs are quickly and get a report in, even before the 6 months is up, so that we can just get on record what the kids need. So, yes, generally what happens in the court is the judge will ask, okay, prosecutor, the county attorney's office, what issue is before the court today? And they'll say, we're here for an extension of temporary legal custody for 6 months. And they'll say, okay, great. Parents, how are you doing? And they go to this table. And then they go up to the child's attorney. How are they doing? And then talk to the CASA. And so that's their opportunity to give a verbal update if anything has changed. The other time that I've seen that, and I've only seen it probably 5 times in all of my years, is when it's a contested hearing and the advocate will get put on the stand sometimes. But we have a program attorney that we hire in those situations. Emily Von Jensen is wonderful, and she helps prep advocates. So, yeah, we support even in those times. Mm-hmm.
What happens when do they age out of the system after 18? Are the advocates following and stuff?
So a lot of times they are. That is worked out between the volunteer and the youth. If they still want the advocate to be in their life, then the advocate oftentimes will maintain connection, but sometimes the CASA is ready to have another case, and so they don't have the time to do that. We've got advocates that maintain connection. I would say there's probably at least 5 different youth that are connected to the CASA office. I've got a little guy he's not a little guy anymore. I still remember he was like little when he came into the system, and he was adopted as an 18-year-old, but now he's trying to apply for military, and he needs a birth certificate, and his birth certificate, we found his original birth certificate in our files, so we were really excited to be able to give him that. But then he said, I need something that matches my adopted name. So now we're looking for finances to hire an attorney to help him get a name change. It's not a super challenging thing. He's an adult. so we don't have to wait for the state to okay it. Yep. Well, thank you all so much, and please, please, please pray for all of us that are doing this. And I thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. You're doing so much already. It's almost like I don't feel like I can ask you to do anything more. But God can ask you to do something if you're led to do that. CASA is not for everyone. My husband once told me I would just want to give everyone a big hug around their neck if I was in that work. And so we're not going to let him be a CASA. But it's not for everybody. But if you feel like God is impressing on your heart, the children that are in foster care and in the court system, please reach out to us. See how you can get involved. If you know of a way you can get involved, you've already got something figured out. If there's no taker for that foosball table, I'll take it. We've got a place where we've got set up perfect. All right. We've got a ping pong table. We just want to have games and books and comfortable chairs around for advocates to meet with their kids and come in and relax and just be able to be together in a safe space. So we are looking for different things. If you've got old used games, child games, that would be great. We have all ages. We advocate for babies up to 18 and beyond. So any age range is great. So swing on by and check us out. Take a look at our space. If there's anything that you see missing, you can feel free to pitch in. So thank you so much for offering to have me here. I'm really grateful. Steve and Justin, appreciate your calls and this invitation. So, yeah. Oh. Yes. So we are in the same building as the food bank. So it's the Gateway Community Center. There's the food bank, and then there's a next door is entrance B, and that is through the food court. And then we've got the second and third doors into the building, the small man doors. So we're in unit 37 and 38. The numbers are on the outside of the door. So, yeah.